Good afternoon and welcome back to our webinar series that we are doing in conjunction with the Victorian Department of Education. This is our very last of our episodes that we are doing this term. So thank you for joining us if you are joining us live. We do have the chat just over there below or next to the video, depending on the view that you've currently got set up. Please do take the time to introduce yourself in there, and I would strongly encourage you to use that chat throughout the webinar to ask as many questions as you have. We are totally open to answering questions as things evolve throughout today's webinar. We are talking this afternoon about inclusive technologies, and we're going to do, I think, what we'd probably call a bit of a high-level overview of Google's accessibility tools. We are in talks with the department about building this out for next term, so really being able to deep dive into the role that some of these inclusive technologies have and linking it back to high-impact teaching strategies. So look for that later on, but this afternoon our aim is to sort of give you a bit of a taster of what's available and some opportunities to learn more as well. Before we jump into that, just we have talked about this in previous webinars, and I think Chris may have said last week that this is officially the worst named website in the world now that everybody for Australia, since we're all back in school here. But we do have our Teach From Home website, which is, regardless of the name, is actually a fabulous resource. So teachfromhome.google. If you haven't checked it out, I really would strongly encourage you to. And one of the things that I'm going to flag on that in particular connected to this afternoon's webinar is there is a whole section in there for families and a whole lot of accessibility resources in there. So like some guides for parents with students who have particular learning needs, etc., that are all on that site. So they're sort of pre-built for you and could be a fantastic resource for you to be able to share out to your community. So this afternoon, I know that if you have joined us previously, you have been enjoying these webinars with Jim Sill and Chris Hart, and they are fabulous. And as I mentioned last week, I was like, okay, well, we need someone who's an absolute wealth of knowledge in everything to do with inclusive technologies. So I thought I'd bring along another one of my amazing educator friends, Greg O'Connor, who's going to work with us this afternoon. So Greg, I'll hand over to you. You want to say a quick hello, introduce a bit of a background of who you are?
Thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, hi, and thank you. They're a tough act to follow, the Jim and Chris show, but we'll do our best. So my name's Greg, everybody. Hi, I'm an educator. Worked, I guess, most of my teaching career has been supporting students with diverse learning needs. I've been a classroom teacher, a school executive, a regional manager, and for the last number of years, I've been an ed tech coach and around inclusive tech, and I'm currently the education technology manager at TextHelp for the Asia Pacific region. So, and I am working from home.
Excellent. Did you make up your title, Greg? Because I feel like last time I heard you introduce yourself, you had a different title at TextHelp.
I generally make it up a different one every time I present. So
excellent, good. Greg and I have actually worked together probably for at least 5 years now and done a lot of stuff together in this space. So that is why I invited him along to talk this afternoon, because I think that you will all learn by the end of this. Chris and Jim did last week, Greg, say that if anyone was going to replace them, that you would best fit to replace them and be better than them. So look forward to that. Before we jump into the webinar though this afternoon, I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. If you are in a Victorian department school, then that is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. But Greg, you are in a very different location to me. So
yeah, I'm up here in Lismore in Bundjalung country. So I definitely would like to acknowledge the traditional owners, past, present, and the future leaders of the Bundjalung Nation and the Indigenous people of this land in which we are currently sitting and living.
Excellent. And we have said in previous webinars that we do just want to acknowledge all of you for turning up, because we are in a completely unprecedented time in education, and I know that time is the one thing that every teacher in the world would like more of. thank you for joining us, or if you're watching this back on the repeat, thank you for making a commitment to try and better serve the young people with whom you work. All right, one final plug for our one-to-one support community as well. So Chris and Jim have spoken about this previously, so I won't spend a lot of time. If you have watched one of our previous webinars, we have an amazing community of Google certified educators and innovators and trainers, which is an amazing community that I've been part of for many, many years as well, who banded together and said they wanted to support the broader education community. So they have developed this one-to-one community support site. You can go on there, say what it is that you'd like support with. Someone from our trainer and innovator community will reach out to you, organise a time to connect. And this is something that's not just COVID related. So if you'd like some additional support, this is a great place to go. But for this afternoon, please do use the chat that is associated with this particular webinar. All right, so this afternoon, as I mentioned at the start, we are going to be doing a bit of an overview of inclusive technologies and what we have in this space in terms of Google's tools. So Greg's going to do a bit of an introduction to universal design for learning, often referred to as UDL, personalised learning. We're going to be looking at a little bit to do with Chromebook accessibility to start with, jumping into G Suite accessibility, then looking at some of the amazing Chrome extensions that exist that actually enhance Google's products even further, and we're going to share a whole lot of resources, feedback, and there's lots of opportunity for Q&A as we go along. So if there is something that you've tuned in this afternoon and you'd really like to know, you have one particular student that you think of that you're like, hey, is there something that I could potentially use with a particular student? We're totally welcome to have any particular specific use cases that we can try and address throughout this afternoon as well. As always, we are doing this in conjunction with Victorian Department of Education, so we are making reference to the high impact teaching strategies and the whole series that we're building out for next term in terms of inclusive technologies. We're actually going to build in conjunction with the HITS framework. So if you haven't checked that out, and if you're not in Victoria, it's a pretty standard sort of framework that can apply across a whole range of different locations. So that's enough of a bit of an intro. Please do use the chat to ask questions, and I'm going to hand over to you, Greg, and if you'd like to sort of share a little bit. And I know I'm driving the slides right now, so you can just tell me when to go to the next slide. I'll hand over to you. So, Greg, I think one of the things that's really important, and one of the things I've learned a lot from working with you for the last 5 years in this space is about really understanding why this is important. In Victoria, for example, with the Victorian Institute of Teaching, we do have a requirement for all teachers to do some professional learning around ensuring that they are able to accommodate students' needs by differentiating or personalising learning opportunities. But I think there's a whole lot of stuff that's really important to help contextualise why we need to be having this conversation regularly and with as many people as possible. And I'm going to hand over to you, Greg, if you want to add something on that.
I do, and you're going to have to hold me back. I could talk for hours, obviously. Just a heads up, Kimberly, I am having, it's always the way, isn't it? You kind of do something like this, and just as you're doing it, your local internet provider decides to kind of ram down the internet speed. So I'll hang in there. I'm sure you can hear me and see me. So accessibility, right. Good. Accessibility with Google, and it is around tools for every student, every educator, every classroom, every family. But what does it actually mean? You know, what do we mean by accessibility? For me, accessibility is essentially that we give all our students the same stuff. You know, the same access to the curriculum, the content they're getting, the same access to the interactions that happen in school and across school systems, the same services, not different. You're not in a different part of the school or in a different curriculum. And at the same time, what we're doing is we're making sure that we're that the effectiveness and integration of what we're doing with our kids is effectively the same for everybody. It's not a dumbed down version, so to speak. And at the same time, it's actually easy to use. Often what we'll do when we talk about accessibility, the accessibility tools that we seem to be able to provide sometimes are really difficult, Kimberly. Like you need a tech degree just to run some of this stuff. So it's really important that it's easy to use, it's available for everybody, and it's across every system that we need to use. And that the cool thing is that in the world of Google, in a Google Chromebook and in Google Chrome, we have all this stuff that just sits there, and we just need to show you now what that looks like. The other question, I guess, is, well, okay, so accessibility is important, but important for who? You know, who are these students? So if I was to look at generally, we kind of think of accessibility being around the area of disability. So if we look across Australia, currently 1 in 5 Australians have a disability. So you would presume that and whatever that is, if you would presume in a classroom you'd have 1 in 5 of your students. 20% of your kids in a classroom would have some kind of learning disability. Then if you look even further, maybe you look at things like, we know there's a whole bunch of stats out there. So on the next slide, Kimberly talks about, some people kind of saying, this is a recent report in the conversation, something like 77% of students in classrooms have diverse learning needs. Is that the right number? There was a research study by the ABS actually, and they with some study they did with primary school principals across Australia, and the feedback was that primary school principals reported that up to 30% of their students could actually be struggling with the literacy requirements of school. They could actually have a reading disability for a start. So, I mean, this number is big. We don't know what it is, but you can rest assured in every classroom there is a range of students with diverse learning needs. Now, if you ask me, who are these kids? I would say that every student in every classroom at some stage has a diverse learning need, and so it's really every student. But anyway, regardless of the number, and we know it's there, what issue do our students have? If a student has a diverse learning need, what are the issues that kind of they need to address? And for me, it's I kind of see it as 3 areas. The first is access, how you access the curriculum. So how you physically access the curriculum. Can I actually use the equipment I'm supposed to use? From turning a printed book, to using a device, to whatever it is, to actually getting in my classroom. It's just access. I have a real passion around literacy. So for me, I often equate access with reading. You come to school and it's all about reading. So, how do I read? How do I get access to information? The second thing for our students that can impact upon them is actually, once they access the learning content, how do they process and reflect on what they've just accessed and how they engage with that? And that's super important, because just because a student can access curriculum doesn't mean they're comprehending it. So we need to kind of address that issue. And then the third one, once our students have accessed the curriculum, have engaged with it, have processed it, and understand what they're supposed to be doing, and they're learning the process, how do they then demonstrate understanding, express what they know? Not only express what they know, but express what they feel, their passions, all those kind of things. And in the literacy frame, that's actually the writing piece, or what writing actually is, or is it? Are there other ways that kids can demonstrate? So they're the three core aspects, and that kind of segues into the next slide, Kimberly, which essentially is what universal design for learning is. Because what happens if these things are important, we need to ensure that we engineer. So if you go to the next slide up there. Here it comes. Greg, I'm sure it's coming eventually.
Yeah, you're stuck,
but it's
I think you've got a bit of a delay, Greg.
It's about what we need to do is, in our classrooms, in our schools, and across our systems, is we need to ensure that we actually have multiple ways that we can have students access the curriculum, multiple ways of representation, multiple ways of, there we go, multiple ways that our students can be engaged with the curriculum, and multiple ways that students can express what they know, multiple ways of expression. And what we need to, what's really important is this is not, it's not actually what the students need to do. It's actually, I'm breaking up.
Yeah, you've got quite a delay. So I'm actually thinking,
so it might be my internet, do you think?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can switch to a hotspot, Greg, as I am in a moment, if I take over, or we'll do the very high.
You still got me, Kimberly?
I do just. We'll do the high-end tech thing, Greg, of restarting your device maybe is always a good idea. We might, no, we've totally lost him, I think. All right, we might, while we do that, Georgia, we might force Greg off and get him to restart. There we go. And I will take over and share some stuff around Chromebook accessibility. I will just round out, and Greg will come back and talk a little bit more about this, that if a lot of you have tuned in this afternoon probably are quite familiar with the UDL framework, but I know Greg in particular is really a big fan of the cast.org website for unpacking that further and getting more information on it. Google, we do have some great accessibility resources which we'll be sharing as well. But obviously, I know that people are interested in a really holistic look at it, that this can be a great resource for you to jump into as well. All right, while we're getting Greg back, and Greg, if you can hear me in the background, if you restart your device and come back in, I think we might be the best way to go. What we're going to do is jump into having a look at some of the accessibility features that are built into Chrome devices. So if I just jump forward down here. Okay, so one of the things before we jump into that I think is fascinating, I only started with the Google for Education team last year, and it was really fabulous to join an organisation like Google and see how within the organisation itself that accessibility is everyone's responsibility. It's not, and I think that translates to schools. It's not the specialist teacher. It's not the person that's running the reading intervention course. It's actually inbuilt into the way that we should be thinking about the way that we work with all students, because when we're talking about inclusive products and inclusive technologies, we're really talking about making accommodations for kids, not having to make modifications. So we shouldn't be having to change everything drastically. We should be able to just accommodate everybody's learning styles. So within Google, we build all of our products with that in mind. So it is natively integrated, and we're going to look at a whole lot of those different things this afternoon. But within the company more broadly, that year is actually built into the way we work. And there you can see, so I won't read them all out. There's a whole lot of really cool things that we do. But one of my favorite things that I recently learned about was these accessibility discovery centers that Google has. And basically they have a couple of locations where any Googler can go in and actually fully immerse themselves in a whole range of different technologies, and so they can experience hands-on what it's like to actually use a braille reader or actually work with particular tools that can change the experience of technology. And the idea is of these discovery centres that you can actually really immerse yourself and not only upskill yourself, but hopefully also, develop some empathy for that accommodation that needs to happen in some spaces. So I think that's a really, really awesome thing that we do at Google, is actually integrate it and make sure that it's everybody's responsibility. So I'm going to jump out of the slide deck now and actually jump into talking specifically about some accessibility stuff that's built into Chrome. So when we do that, we'll just add Greg back and see. Hi, Greg, you back?
I'm back. Do I sound okay?
Now, much better. You actually responded immediately as opposed to before when you and I were both talking to each other. It was a bit of that happening.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. There's nothing, there's totally exactly what you would expect in a technology webinar, to have the technology fail you. And I think every webinar we've done in this series, actually either Jim or Chris have had some issue with their internet. So excellent. All right. So Greg, I sort of rounded out what you said, but I think we can come back to that maybe at the end as well. And just, I know that you will drop bits and pieces of different research that you know and things throughout as well. Yep. But I thought we would pivot and start jumping into Chromebook accessibility, look at a few bits in there, and then jump into some G Suite stuff and then Chrome. So I want to just start by showing you, I guess, some really important things. I think if you are a school that has Chromebooks or are considering Chromebooks, one of the things that we do with all of our tools is ensure that the accessibility is built in straight out of the box. So if I jump down into my menu in Chrome, you'll actually see here that I have the accessibility menu as part of my main menu within Chrome. Now, this isn't there by default, but this is the one thing I think that you should do as your very starting point if you are in a Chromebook. It's the same on many other devices as well, is ensure that your accessibility menu options are front and center so that they are easily accessible by everybody, including you as the teacher at all times. And to do that, I just jump up into my settings up here. And then if I go over here to advanced, you'll see that I have accessibility. And the very option here that we want to check on is that we want to show our accessibility options in our system menu. And what that means is that they'll now be available here. And if I toggle that off, they're not available. Now, the reason I think this is really great is that you'll see I've already used a couple of accessibility features in the way that I present. And this is the way that I work with anybody that I'm working with, regardless of age or ability, because I think that some of them just absolutely enhance the way that we work, and they help me as a user to do things more efficiently and effectively as well. So first of all, I'm going to jump in and talk about some of my favorite things, I guess, to probably support people who need some visual assistance and look at some zooming functions and things like that. So most of you are probably aware of if I close this window, the keyboard shortcuts for zooming in and out. And, I think most people have probably got into that situation. Has everyone done that, Control+ on their keyboard before, when you end up at the point where you actually are not sure what's happened, but you suddenly can't see anything on your screen? Greg, has that happened to you before and you didn't realize that you'd zoomed in that much? Yeah, it happens to me. Yeah, it happens. You're like, oh, oops, okay, now where do I go and how do I find what I want? The one thing I always make sure that people know about in terms of keyboard shortcuts is if you're going to use your Control+ or your Control- to zoom in and out, you want to know that the keyboard shortcut Control-0 actually resets it back to your standard view. And that's like, I've been in lots of places where I've gone around to help people and they're like, oh, I can't work out what's going on my screen. Why am I so zoomed in? And you just show them Control-0 and it will absolutely speed up the way that they can work. I really love keyboard shortcuts. Greg, do you try and learn keyboard shortcuts as well?
I do. I actually have the Google keyboard shortcut kind of bookmarked. There's a whole page of all the shortcuts.
Oh yeah,
I love them, particularly the accessibility shortcuts. But yeah,
absolutely. And there's
sorry, for lots of students, they're really important because particularly if they have trouble navigating with their mouse, or if they've got a touch sensitive screen, they can navigate. You can navigate everything on your Chromebook from your keyboard. You don't actually need to use a mouse or the touchpad or your screen. So that for some people, it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll show you when we jump into one of the G Suite products, you can actually access the keyboard shortcut page for each of the tools within the tool itself, which is really great. Underneath our accessibility function here, I just want to show you a couple of other things that really help me in the way that I work and help, I guess, focus as well. And you'll see in my menu here that I have ticked the full screen magnifier, and that is what I am using when I do this zoom in to a particular point to focus. And once I've turned it on, it's just a keyboard combination again. So it's Control and Alt, and then I put my two, oops, sorry, zoomed in too much on that one. I do a keyboard. I always, sorry if I'm making you motion sick at home. You just put your two fingers on the trackpad, zoom in to the mouse and zoom out. I have found that just being able to do that zoom seamlessly is just so important in terms of helping to focus. When we're working in digital spaces, there are so many things that are trying to pull our attention away from what we are potentially working on. And so being able to customize what it is that you're looking at, or if you are doing direct instruction at the front of the classroom, being able to actually say, hey guys, I want you to zoom into the waffle. What do you call this one, Greg? This button?
I call it the waffle button.
Yeah, okay, good. I don't think that's the official term, but that's what I call it too. So actually being able to say, this is where I want you to actually click, it's so much easier than trying to describe with like random words like waffle to be able to do that. And so I just did that in my accessibility menu here. And I turned on the full screen magnifier. Just one final magnifier, and then I'm going to hand over to you, Greg, to talk about some of your favorites. And I will just show you this one. This is the docked magnifier. And you'll see with this one, what we actually have is it splits your screen, and you will see in the top third of the screen, it's actually magnifying what you're working on in the bottom third. So you can just continue to operate your device as you would like, as normal, and you actually get this ability to just jump up and look at the magnified version if and when needed. Can be really, really great when you are, on a web page, and we know that there's not a lot of standardization in terms of font size on a lot of websites, and you jump from having really large font to something that's in like micro size font. Having this magnifier up here means that you actually don't have to, once again, it doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to do anything particularly special. As a learner, you're actually just able to change where you're looking on your screen and actually engage with the content that's on there as well. So Greg, there's some of my, that's my starting point,
Yep.
my favorites.
That's okay. And I was just going to kind of mention, Kimberly, 2 points about what you just demoed. Is one is that for lots of students having access to those features, you kind of go, oh, I won't have a student who needs to magnify the screen necessarily. But we know that lots of learners, their diversity is not a flat line. It's not a constant. So some kids in the morning, they'll be fine with the font on the screen, but in the afternoon, their eyes might get tired. So the ability to actually use the tools when they need is super important. And that's this kind of concept of personalization, not concept. This is what personalization is. That I remember when I first started teaching, we used to have to go and get large font or large text books for kids. Well, they just do it themselves. They've got this tool. They open up their Chromebook and they're straight into it. So that's that kind of personalization, and that's what agency is all about, isn't it? They can use when they need and how they. And the teacher, the cool thing is that it's actually it's like a time saver for teachers, because you don't actually have to run around and find, in this case, large print, because you've given the students the tools that they need. Now I need to share my screen because I'm back as Arnie said. Okay, so you can.
So while you're doing that, Greg, we do have a question from Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Welcome back to the webinars. What we're showing right now, the zooming function and the docked magnifier, we are showing specific accessibility features built into a Chromebook. Most hardware does have a range of accessibility stuff built into it. I couldn't talk with any authority to the specifics of it, but if you look up whatever device you're using, if you basically Google like magnifier zooming function, you will find the settings page that will actually take you through the process of how to do that on whatever device you're on. Thanks for joining us. And thanks, Lisa, for asking a question. Please do use the chat. If there's anything that comes up at all, we do really encourage you to use the chat. We're really happy to answer. Greg, your screen is definitely not clear to me.
Okay, so let me, it's not good. We're having so much fun, aren't we?
We're loving technology. We're loving the
just
internet.
change my I'm just going to change my resolution. I'll try at standard res. I'll just try low res.
You're welcome, Lisa.
Still not good.
No, have you tried just a simple refresh on that page?
No.
No. Let's see how you go. Refresh. If it doesn't work, what we might do is jump across to my screen again, Greg.
Yeah, I will do that.
And I know what you're going to talk about, I'm pretty sure. So I will show, and then you can.
You're still hearing me okay?
Yeah, hearing you fine.
And I'll just, you can, yeah.
Okay, should we jump? We'll jump back to my screen. I think we might have a slight delay again. So here we go. We're going to jump back into my screen, Greg.
I think let's go back to your page. Let's go back to your screen. Okay. Let's go back to your screen.
Okay, we're back on my screen. So if you're not seeing my screen, you're going to need to leave and come back again. Sorry. All right, we're having really big issues.
Can you hear me okay?
Not really. You're very delayed again, Greg. So I'm going to kick you out. If you can restart again, do whatever you did magically before to come back better. And then I'm going to take over again. All right. So, yeah, Colleen, sorry, we are having trouble with Greg's internet right now, which is not the best time for Telstra to be doing updates, but I'm not sure that they are aware of our webinar series. Who knew? So we're going to kick Greg out. Greg, if you restart or whatever magic you did before to come back with better sound, you do that again. And I'm going to just share a final couple of things in Chromebook accessibility, and then we're going to jump straight into G Suite. So I will just show you, I know that Greg was going to talk about a couple of things, but I will just point out something that I have on my screen at the moment, which you might have noticed that I actually have this round circle around my mouse. So I've turned on the highlight mouse cursor. For me personally as a learner and as a technology user, I have to tell you, this has saved me good 10 to 30 seconds every time I use a dual screen setup, because anybody who's been working from home and has been fortunate enough to be able to have a second screen will know that moment where you're like, wait, where's my mouse? Which screen is it on? And for me, I just turned this on not because I needed it necessarily, because of the way that I was generally viewing things. I needed it because I was losing my mouse, and it just helps me to find it. But you can see how much that's helping to focus on your specific mouse wherever it is on your screen as well. So that's built into Chrome as well. And there is, and I'll just show you this, if you just Google custom cursor for Chrome, there is a really cool Chrome extension, so available through the Chrome Web Store here, which is, you can install this and it actually enables you to have even more options in terms of customized cursors. And I think Jim might have had one of these on in a previous webinar as well, and he had like smiley faces on his cursor. But you can see that one of the things I really like about this is it's enabling, once again, that personalization of, hey, I want to make my mouse bigger, or I want to be able to see this, but I'm also reflecting something that's important to me or personal to me, or it makes me smile. So like, I remember Jim talking about his custom cursor is that he liked the fact that when he saw the little smiley face, it gave him a little grin as well. So I just Googled custom cursor for Chrome. So if you just Google that, I'm terrible with web addresses. So I never remember the address to anything, and nobody could remember this address. Let's just check that one out. And you will find it in the Chrome Web Store. Greg, hi, welcome back.
Deary me. Hi, I'm back.
Good, excellent. Would you like me to share my screen still and you can talk?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I know what were you going to talk about before we lost you, Greg?
I was going to do two things. One, I was going to get you to hit your search, control, and H key. Do it.
Okay. You want me to hit my search, control, and H key? Oh, we didn't do any pre-planning of this, so I didn't know it was actually going to happen.
And so that's just using one of the features. We're talking about the different Chromebook accessibility features. This is the high contrast feature. What it does, it does the reverse. So for students who found black text on a white background difficult, they can just do that keyboard shortcut, search, control H, and automatically. So if they're on a Google Doc, rather than actually having the white background and the black text, it would actually have a black background and white text. Just pretty simple, but for some people, that's a really kind of nice. I'll show you later on. There's a few other extensions that can do that, and you can change the color. The other thing, say you went to a web page, Kimberly.
Sure, where would you like me to go?
Is my screen okay now? Do we want to risk it?
Still very blurry to me.
Okay. Well, don't go to my screen. Just go to a web page. What's your favorite web page?
Oh, google.com.
Yeah, an education. Go to
oh, okay. I was going to go to the accessibility resource, google.com /the accessibility.
Perfect. That is the perfect web page. So for lots of students, that text on the screen, they would need to be able. Remember, I talked about the first key is access. The ability to access the curriculum. How do I get that information? And using the select to speak feature in the Chrome accessibility is really important. The Chromebook accessibility. If you went down, can you go to your accessibility? That's it. And press that, and then you've got it already. See, you've got select to speak. So what you can do with that selected down there, but before you even click on that, if you just hold your search key and your the letter S and click on everyone. Oops.
That didn't work for me.
Okay.
What if I highlight first?
You can highlight there, and now do the same thing.
So
now hit. What you can do is you can hit with the word highlighted, hit the search key and the S key.
Yeah, it did read it. I think you were talking at the time. See? There you go.
And so the cool
whole sentence. So read this whole sentence to me, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone should be able to access and enjoy the web.
Yeah, and the thing about that is that what that little ability to do that is that the students or the learner can actually just read the bit of the text they want to be read. So you might have text to speech is really important for people with low vision, or people who just like to have the text read to them, people with reading and comprehension challenges, and new language learners, for instance, and they might be reading that and they come across the word committed and they don't know what is that word, and they can just highlight that one word and have it read back rather than having the whole screen read back. Yeah, but if they wanted the whole thing read back, then you can go and you can press. You just hold down the search key and then draw a box over where you want. You just kind of choose the whole thing. That's it, and just go like that, and it's read back.
Access and enjoy the web. We're committed to making that a reality.
And that is so. I can't tell you how. For some people, that is like just a wow moment. Wow. My device can just do that, on a web page, a Google Doc, a Google slide, wherever I am, it can happen. And what will happen, someone will ask, around, can I change the voice and stuff? You can just go back into the settings, and you can go in and you can change the voice. You can, that's it. Go up to the settings, up to the little, that's it. You're doing so well.
Thank you.
And here you can go down to that one.
Yep.
It'll take you to a new screen. Click on that, and here you can, where it's got text to speech settings up the top, it will allow you to go in and change the rate, the pitch, and also choose which voice you want. So there's a default voice that's there, but you can choose another language as an example. But I love there's a cappella voices for the Chromebook that you can get. And okay,
is that a Chrome extension, Greg?
Sorry, is
that a Chrome extension?
It's a Chrome. Yeah, it's a cappella. That's the one. And you install that. And once you've installed that, it gives you access to a whole bunch of voices. And there's two really lovely Australian kid voices that you can install, and students just love hearing other students. It's just for younger students, it's a really nice alternative to that other voice we were hearing before. So yeah, I highly recommend that.
So once again, you can just Google, if anyone wants us to, we can drop in the chat the link as well, but you can just Google a cappella TTS engine and you'll see, it was the first hit for me. I just found it on the Chrome web store.
Yeah.
Greg, I have to say that I've used the select to speech function before, and I've never used the keyboard shortcuts. I always was very much like old school, come down here, click on the little icon to make it speak. And
you can do that.
But it's so much better using keyboard shortcuts for me personally as a learner. I was just like, oh, that's great. Especially when I'm reading things, even as an educator, and I don't know how to pronounce things. I don't know if anybody else suffers from that, but I totally am someone who my background is in literacy and linguistics, and I was the worst at like, oh, I know I should know how to say this word, but I don't right now. And I love the idea of actually just tapping in, and because it's on my Chromebook, I could do it on anything. That's right, because it's all web-based. So.
Yeah, exactly. And you know that that one feature can actually change the life of a student for a whole range of reasons. One of the things we know is that when you get read to, you can comprehend text 2 to 3 grade levels above your reading age. So for lots of students who are struggling readers, they're trying to read content at their grade level and they just can't do it. They're just spending the whole time decoding. If it gets read to them, what they can do is they can comprehend the content. So often what we're getting kids to do initially as struggling readers is we're getting them to decode their first off the bat. They're like having a cold read of a web page. By actually giving them text to speech, they're actually kind of getting engaged in their learning from the get-go. And it's so important, that that they just that has to happen. One of the I was doing some work, been doing some work in higher ed, and one of the most commonly cited reasons for non-course completion is reading. And for students and in higher ed situations, just having really complicated text read to you just reduces your cognitive load of comprehension. So for all kids, those older students in school and up in secondary school, seniors, text to speech for lots of them is just a cool research and study tool. Just having it read.
I don't think it's not just students; it's us too, right? So,
yeah.
All right, we're going to jump in to a Google Doc now, and I'm going to use that same shortcut. If you haven't checked it out, docs.new will just create a new, or slides.new or sheets.new will create a new doc for you. Greg, have you used that little trick yet?
I have not.
There you go. You just open a new tab and chuck in, docs.new, slides.new, sheets.new, and it will just open a new doc for you. You don't have to go to Drive and go new or docs, blah, blah, blah. No one has time for that. So we're going to jump into docs now, though, and share. We're going to go through some of our favorite accessibility features that are built into some of the G Suite tools. And obviously, we're not going to have time for all of them, but we'll just talk about, I'm going to call this once again our highlights reel. So I'm going to start with Docs, which I have to say, I'm not sure if you're allowed to have favorite G Suite products when you work for the Google for Education team, but if I could only have one of the tools, I would pick Docs, because I think it's, I know that's controversial to say that, but for me, it could have something to do with my English teacher background. But I think that there are so many ways you can use Docs beyond, that simple word processing, which I know that we've talked about in some of our previous webinars as well. So if you haven't seen it before, though, one of my all-time favorite things that is built into Google Docs is the voice typing. And so I just go into my tools menu and down to voice typing. And I will say that if you are using a browser other than Chrome, stop that, but that's aside, you will not find, you'll find that the voice typing won't work. So if you come up to your tools menu and you go down to voice typing, it's grayed out. See how compare documents is grayed out here? If your voice typing is grayed out, you potentially either have to update your Chrome browser if it hasn't updated itself. So that if you haven't restarted your computer for a while, it hasn't updated properly, if you haven't closed it properly, or you're not on Chrome. So just double check that. And this is just an awesome built-in, we won't spend a heap of time on it, speech-to-text function. And I'm going to just come up here at the start, though, and change the language that's inputting, because you can see that there are a whole lot of different Englishes available. And I definitely find that it does understand me better if I change the English to Australian English. And then I just start typing with my voice, full stop. And this is as complicated as it gets. But for me, as someone who often has that idea that I have to know how to spell things because I have a background as an English teacher, sometimes I find that if I can input my ideas with my voice, then I actually instantly remove one of the barriers that will sometimes stop me from writing. Full stop, new paragraph. I can also do all kinds of formatting with my voice, comma. And I also love, as an English teacher, the fact that it forces me to do punctuation verbally, because that's a whole nother cognitive process. But that's not what we're supposed to be talking about this afternoon. Full stop. So it did a pretty decent job of that. I wasn't talking particularly slowly or clearly necessarily. And I've not seen it do this before. It actually totally caught me out for my not pronouncing my words correctly with my cos here. But you can see that this is a really simple way for people to be able to, I guess, get a whole lot of ideas down really quickly. And it does remove a barrier for a lot of learners when they're actually starting to write. Greg, sorry.
I was just going to say it does for some students, because we're talking about students with diverse learning needs. Some students, you just have to kind of really do that assessment about where they're at. Using voice typing for younger students, it's not a really good idea unless you're really confident that's a tool they need, because what you just did then, Kimberly, you've got to kind of think of the sentence in advance. You've got to then dictate it to the machine in a consistent way, because that's important. Sorry. And then you have to go back and edit what you just on the screen. So it's quite a cognitive loaded process. So, but for some kids, like spelling, is really difficult. You only write words and you can spell. For some kids, they're writing and they'll know a word like photosynthesis, for instance, and they're writing about plants and they know what this word is, but they just can't spell it. So what they tend to do, what some kids will do, is rather than use that word they can't spell, they'll find alternative words, words that are, and so when they come to have that work assessed, the teacher goes, I didn't know the word, blah, blah, blah. I just show them voice type. I just show them here. And because I go, well, if you can't spell it, just say it. So if you typed in plants use, Kimberly, and you go plants use, and you go, how do I spell it? Just hit the button. Yeah. And there you go. You've just spelt the word. And because we're not assessing their ability to spell. We want to know that they know what that word means and they can use it in a sentence. So as a spelling tool, it's awesome.
Yeah, I also love the other languages option. So for learners whose language might not be English as a first language, they can input in different languages. And you do have the option underneath your tools menu as well to translate any Google Doc into another language. And so I've learned from a lot of schools that they use this function to enable them to actually communicate with their community more effectively, because they might have a whole lot of families that when they send home, their bulletins and their newsletters and things, and it's only available in English, that it instantly means that a whole lot of the families can't engage in what it is that they are hoping to share with them. We're going to hand over to your screen in just a second, Greg, but I will just show you under here. I mentioned before that in all our G Suite products, you actually can access the accessibility settings specifically for that product underneath the tools menu. So in Docs here, you can say, I can jump into accessibility settings, and it gives you the ability to input, turn on a screen reader, so you can have Braille support, you can turn on screen magnifier, so where you can add a whole lot of additional resources as well. It's actually inbuilt into each of the tools themselves as well. Just very quickly, and then Greg, we might try your screen again if you in a moment. I do want to just share one other really cool thing that is in Docs, and underneath our font menu. So you'll see I just clicked on where it said my font, and then I'm going into my more fonts. Google actually partnered, I think it was last year, did a whole lot of research and actually released in partnership a series of fonts called Lexend. And these are based on a whole lot of, obviously, research and theory into how do we reduce the cognitive noise when we are reading text online. And so it's got, the ability to have different types of spacing, and you can actually just add any of these to your default fonts that you have available to you in Docs. And this in itself could be a huge advantage in terms of helping kids who need some different type of fonts available to them. It's now available on my doc here, so I've still got it here, and that will change the way that they're able to actually read within Google Docs. So that, I think it was last year that came out, maybe early this year. This year's kind of become a blur, actually, honestly. So timing wise, Greg, should we kick over to you, and do you want to jump into something? Let's see how your screen looks. Yeah. No. So as soon as we kick over to you, Greg, we lose your audio. Are you back again? No. All right. Well, Greg, we've lost your audio again. So I'm just gonna kick on, and I'm gonna go to slides.new. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I wouldn't. My screen is not. It's not doing a good job. So let's stay with your screen, and I'll just
yeah, but you can just tell me what you want me to touch and things. But we lost your audio again. Bye, Greg. See you again soon. All right, so I'm going to jump into slides, and I just once again did slides.new to open a new slide deck, and I want to show you probably my all-time favorite feature. Did I just say that about voice typing? I may have. This is in my top 3 features available in. I should have written something on the slide. So this is my new slide. Here we go. So I'm going to jump into presenting this slide. And when I go into present any slide deck, you'll actually see if I move my mouse over the screen when I'm in present mode, you get your menu that appears on the screen. And one of my all-time favorite things that Google has released in G Suite is this ability to turn on captions in slides. And so if I click on this, you'll see that it will now start to live caption me as I am talking in my slide deck. I can customize the captions. So I've moved them to the top of the screen. If it was more appropriate, I could move them down the bottom, obviously depending on what and where your screen is being viewed. I can also change the font size of this as well. So I can make it larger, I can make it extra large. But one of the really cool things that I love about this it reinforces, Greg mentioned earlier about this concept of being read to can make a difference, but also being able to read things that you otherwise just have to take in from an auditory point of view can be really impactful. Hi, Greg. And so I love the idea that I can have, if I took off my new slide off here, I would have literally nothing on my screen. I'm just really taking advantage of this awesome feature that's built into Google Slides. I will say, if you haven't used this before, the thing that I noticed everybody who uses it for the first time, it's really hard not just to read the closed caption the entire time as a speaker and just see how accurate it is being. But I will also say, as someone who is 100% self-confessed fast talker, this has actually been really good for me to just actually consider the speed at which I talk, because I do notice that the closed captions are going to be more accurate when I slow down slightly. And this is obviously a magical machine doing this closed captioning, but the machine is not dissimilar to the way that you and I process listening. And if I slow down slightly, it actually gives a lot more people an opportunity to take in what I'm saying. So that's what I find it really useful for as well. I've said to a lot of people that you don't necessarily have to be running a lesson from slides. So it doesn't have to be like really direct instruction, teacher-focused type of activity where you can use this. You could, as a teacher, just literally have a blank slide. So we just had the white screen up before, and just be standing near enough to your device that it closed captions whatever it is that you're talking about. So you could even be, old school, not really old school, whiteboarding on a actual physical whiteboard with a pen, and have this on a screen next to you. I've also seen some students, just as an entry point to being able to find this useful for them, having them sit in the a front row close to you, and actually just have this running on their own personal device as well, as a way of accessing the information. Greg, how does it cope when you talk?
It copes fine. It's closed captioning is a really great feature. There we go. See, I mumble a lot, but in a classroom, what's great about closed captioning is that it's obviously a tool for students for a deaf student or students who are hearing impaired, but where closed captioning is used most in our community? In places like gyms, where you've got it up on the screen, you've got the news running and the closed captioning is being there, and it's a tool that everybody in the gym's using because they can't actually hear, because there's so much loud AC/DC music going for the guys pumping the weights in the background. So they're just reading up there. So closed captioning is one of those tools. It's actually for everybody. And in a classroom, as you just described, what generally happens is you might bring all the kids to the front of the room who, for whatever reason, you want them to hear you. Well, no, that universal design concept and accessibility says that students should be able to stay like everyone else. If they're sitting at the back of the room using closed captioning, they can hear you just as well by using the closed captioning, because so it's an adjustment. So it's just really important feature. Once you start using it, it just becomes second nature.
Absolutely. I will just come out of that, and I will just quickly share one other really, just if you are interested, we'll get a lot of questions. At this point, you can use your voice typing in slides as well, but it is only into the speaker notes yet. So what I recommend to people is, if you wanted to do exactly what we just did in Docs, you can still type into your speaker notes, and you can always copy and paste it into the body of your slide if you wanted to as well. And then just finally, I'll just share, and I'm conscious of the time, so we won't spend much time on this. Another really awesome feature that I really like in terms of allowing everyone in the classroom a chance to have their voice heard is the Q&A feature, which is built into slides. And this basically, if I click on Q&A, it brings up another screen where I can actually kick off an audience tool Q&A. It will put on the top of my slide deck a link And this link, basically, if I open it, it takes me to a spot where I can ask any questions. I really like this opportunity to have sort of like that back channel, and obviously you know your students better than me, so you can work out what's appropriate in your particular classroom. But I love the idea of having a back channel available for students who don't want to put their hand up and interrupt the lesson to ask questions, but have an opportunity to do so while the lesson is happening. And so that I accessed it through my menu in here, but I can also get into that if I clicked on the little arrow, the little drop arrow next to the present, you'll actually see I can click into presenter view, and that's where I can access my Q&A as well. Greg, why don't we jump into, we've got so much to cover in so little time. We might jump into quickly. I will just flag, and if you have been doing any sort of remote distance learning over the last few months, and if you're in Victorian schools, you've been doing a lot of that, you may have used Meet, which was previously Google Hangouts and was renamed to Meet. So this is our video conferencing tool. I'm not going to start one now just because I'm worried it'll kick you off, Greg, with the amount of data it'll use to run a video conference within our video conference. But I do want to flag that inside of Meet, when you are in a Meet call with people, down the bottom of your screen, all users who are in the call have the ability to turn on captions as well, and that will actually caption the Meet. And it's pretty impressive. It's actually even more impressive than the slides one, because if, you know, Greg and I were in a call, when I talk, it would say Kimberly, blah, blah, blah. And then when Greg talks, it attributes that Greg is now talking, and it tells me exactly what he's saying. And that can be turned on and off by any user. So a really great way for people to be able to, once again, engage with that as well. I also, in Meet, Greg, we were talking about the idea of being able to record yourself for your lesson. Did you want to mention about the multiple, you want to talk to that briefly? Multiple mediums for kids to interact?
And record the lesson, and you can actually obviously you've got the captioning happening, but you're recording a lesson. The great thing about having a recorded lesson for diverse learners is you've got the ability for synchronous and asynchronous kind of interaction. So obviously in the synchronous way, you know, students can be watching it live. That's great. Your lesson, but lots of kids actually wouldn't need repetition. You know, they need to watch what Miss Hall just did then 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. When it's recorded as a video, they can go back and watch that over and over again. The other cool thing is when it goes up into YouTube, that recording, Kimberly, and get me if I'm wrong, they also get access not only to the captioning but to a transcript.
Yeah, so if we jump into YouTube, and I'll just show you a couple of my favorite things in YouTube. I am in a demo account, so I often demo YouTube from my personal account, and then all that comes up is the Wiggles, because I have an almost 4 and an almost 2-year-old, so I don't know what any of these are because I don't think I've ever watched YouTube from this demo account. Oh, look, Baby Shark apparently. That's the one thing I have looked for in YouTube in this demo account previously.
You are living dangerously by using someone else's YouTube account.
I know. Well, this is a demo. It's a nobody's account in theory. Oh, here we go. If you haven't listened to Baby Shark, it doesn't have Baby Shark's not closed captioned. So what I'm going to do is jump into a TED Talk. And one of the really cool things about videos that are uploaded into YouTube is that all of the videos.
This is a life.
I'm also in an account that I don't have premium, so I'm getting ads.
But you can't buy.
There we go. All right. So in every YouTube video that is uploaded, I'll just turn the sound off this, you'll actually see that there is the ability to turn on captions for it. So this is all done when you upload a video as a content creator on YouTube. It can automatically close caption for you. You also have the option of customizing the subtitles in there. But once again, it's just a matter of actually turning that on, and it will make a huge difference to being able to read that. One thing that I will say is, like, even in a TED Talk here, you can see how that closed caption is pretty dark against the background. So in your settings menu, you'll see that you have a subtitles menu. And this is where I could pick different languages to have my subtitles in, which can be great. But there's also up here options and if I come back down here, that enable me to customize what those closed captions look like. So what that means is that if I am watching a video that is particularly dark, I might want to change the background color. I can change the opacity, the font color, the font size, the font family as well, and make those captions actually more accessible for me. And because those captions exist down below your YouTube video, when you see your, what is this, sideways snowman? What do you call the 3 dots, Greg?
I call them the 3 dots.
Yeah, good, excellent. I was reading something online the other day about the names that people come up with for this. There are some crazy names.
But the one over there is is next to save is the 3 hot dogs at church. That's what I call that.
I'm pretty confident that's not the official name for that one. So if I click on the menu option here, 3 dots is usually a menu in G Suite. You'll actually see that I can open the transcript. And what this will do is it will open next to my video a transcript of those closed captions. And this can be really, really cool. Here we go, any moment now. Go internet, go. It is raining. If you are in Victoria, you will know that we are, like, winter came, and it's like, we're going to make sure that you know that it's winter, and it is pouring outside right now. And we all know that the internet doesn't like rain, wind, heat. Basically, actually, the internet doesn't like Australia.
Or Greg. Doesn't like Greg. Right? Yeah. While that's coming up, so it's going to bring up the transcript, and it's going to be timed synced too. So I'll tell you the time with what it will transcribe what's being said. So that's great because you can actually the student can actually read that. But one of the things that students with diverse learning needs struggle with is organisation, because they're coping with so many things. Just being organised around research and study. If you're watching a video, YouTube video as a research tool, you're kind of watching this to get information. The transcript, what it does is basically giving you these notes automatically. Hey, it's raining here too, by the way.
That's how your internet started. I'm going to refresh my browser. I'm going to run the risk of refreshing it and seeing what happens. It would normally actually load for me instantly because we typically have pretty good internet at my house, thankfully, touch wood. I shouldn't say that before we finish a webinar.
It's interesting. When I'm not connected to this platform we're using, everything works fine here. As soon as I connect to this particular platform we're using, which wouldn't happen if we were using Meet, by the way.
No, that's right. Okay, so my transcript's not loading, so you're just going to have to try that one at home. This is a do-it-yourself at home right now. But one of the really cool things as well, I found, Greg, you were just talking about that value of the transcript, is that you can actually, when you're trying to find a specific part in a video, and as the you're going back to it, you can actually read through it. And when you click on the transcript, it jumps to that exact part in the video. Yep. And I found a lot of people using that as a really great way. What you're saying, Greg, you're sort of, organising and keeping up with where they are and wanting to find key information without having to filter through too much other stuff. I don't want to stop and start my video 20 times. I just want it to work. I'm going to close that though because it's actually not working. So
and by the way, Kimberly, apparently Jim and Chris have been making comments about they've never had any problems when they've run.
Jim, look at this. This is what's happening in the background. If you've been on previous webinars, you will know Chris Hart, and you guys have never had any internet issues is a blatant lie. But anyway, okay. So, Greg, let's jump over and have a chat about some of our favourite Chrome extensions. And as I said, we are just doing our highlights reel this afternoon. We are going to come back and build out and get in really depth with a whole lot of really awesome things that are available. And look, we're still getting comments from these two. Maybe you two could stop watching. So I thought maybe this afternoon, just to wind up, Greg, we could talk about read and write. This is actually how Greg and I got to know each other professionally, was that Greg works for TextHelp, who make this awesome tool called Read and Write. And my background in teaching the subjects that I taught, found Read and Write and fell in love with it. And so I was going around telling everyone how much I loved Read and Write. And then I met the person that actually helps to make it happen here. And that's how. Yeah. So, Greg, I didn't test in this account where my look at that, perfect. Wow. I was like, I didn't test in my test account my Read and Write because your screen was going to demo it, but looks like all systems go. So Greg, I'm gonna drive and you're gonna talk.
Yeah, well, the thing about read and write is it's kind of this. So it appears in Chrome. It's a Chrome extension, and you're in a Google Doc at the moment. So when you're in Google Doc, it's also in Slides, and it's also works with PDFs, and it's on a website. But if you just stay in that doc for them, or
yeah, sorry, I was testing my internet by jumping over and seeing it. Sorry, I shouldn't run with I shouldn't challenge the internet.
That's right. The thing about it is it's a simple toolbar, and lots of things we've been talking about that are built into your Chromebook, into Chrome accessibility. You've got to go to lots of different places to get some of those features. So there's a bit of a cognitive load process there for some kids. The read and write toolbar, it's all sitting on one. All the features that students need and teachers need are on the one toolbar, and they're like. It's like I liked when we work with Chrome, we work with Google. It's about what we do is we're working with Google, but we're actually taking some of the features, accessibility features, and kind of taking to another level. So, for instance, the text-to-speech feature, if you were just to put your cursor somewhere, it'll read back. That's all good.
You want me to read that back?
Yeah, and it highlights it.
Start typing with my voice.
That's exactly what I found.
But this is complicated as it gets.
And you can just press stop. If you go over to the 3 dots, there we go. You got it. And go down to options. You can quickly, without going anywhere, you quickly go in and you can just choose the voice, and you can click on that, and you've got a whole bunch of down voices, and they're all there. It comes with the Aussie Karen and Lee voices, and you can load in a whole. So the voices are there. You can quickly adjust the reading speed. You can do things like get it just to read one word at a time, read a sentence at a time, continuously read, and you've got your translation tool. So it's all kind of just built in. The couple of things, just really quickly, I guess, is that if I went to one of those words you've got there, let's say background. I don't know. I've just chosen the word background. I'm not too sure what that word means. If you go up to the toolbar, there's a dictionary, the third icon along, and it will give you that definition, but it will also tell you what part of speech it is, and it's speech enabled. So if you click when you click the play button next to each definition, it will read it back to you.
The part of a picture or photo behind the main item or object. There were flowers in the back.
I was interested in that definition. It's not the first definition I would have come up with the background, so I totally got distracted, Greg.
Yeah. Well, then if you click that open and click on the icon next to the dictionary, just move that. You can move that pop-up window around in the picture dictionary, and then it will give you that as an image. So it kind of helps for those students who just need. So if you went and now just put your cursor on the word teacher. Both the dictionary, just put anywhere on the word teacher, both the dictionary and the picture dictionary changes. So, and any word you like. So it just gives that for some students, it's a great way of, complicated. Yeah, there might be no picture for it. There is. There we go.
That's what I wanted to know. What was the visual for complicated?
Yeah. And you can even, Kimberly, you can even drag that picture that's in the picture dictionary, grab it and drag it and put it next to the word complicated in the sentence or down there.
Does that make sense? Photosynthesis is complicated.
It is. So students can put visual images in there. Teachers can differentiate their curriculum, their writing instructions. So, So
that's really cool. Can I just say, I've been talking about read and write at least 5 years, and I never realized that this was a play button. I just thought it was like a funny bullet point. I was like, why do you have this weird bullet point text help? Like, that's not very attractive. So there you go. And I learned something new.
Yeah, and then for people who work with younger kids, they'll use the picture dictionary, and they can quickly make up lovely vocab cards and all sorts of resources with that, with those images. So and that works everywhere. So that's just one. And one other thing, I guess, while we're there, if you were get rid of those altogether and just highlight, say, the word teacher. See up on the toolbar there, if you highlight the word teacher, up on the toolbar, there's that's it. Use that highlight, and then maybe highlight, I don't know, voice on the first line.
I was going to say, please don't get me to try and find words really quickly. Are you happy for me to do them in different?
And that's enough. Just use and spell. Yeah, that's all good. and then hit the third icon from the end. That's it, the vocabulary icon. And so now students can go, oh, I need to find out more about this vocab. I need to dive in deeper. What Read and Write will do now, by hitting that vocab tool, it will create a vocabulary list for them. Put that in a new doc, make a table, put 4 columns in it, put the word they highlighted, the definition, and some of the symbols that might represent what that word means. So they're quickly making up vocab sheets, which is really super cool as well. So
yeah, that's one of my favorite things in Read and Write, and every teacher I've ever shown that to loves it, because it's such a great way of easily creating an additional resource, because we know, like you said, Greg, that language, understanding that language can be so important and can often function as a barrier. So
yeah, and so what teachers can do is, when they're on a website they want to send students to, they can quickly go to that website, know they want to do some pre-vocab or make up a word wall or whatever it is. They can use that feature and be generating a vocab sheet for their students. I'll be interested to see what Committed comes up with.
I know, I always pick, whenever I demonstrate Read and Write, I have to say I pick often the weirdest words to make vocab lists out of. So sorry. You probably
right.
Oh, Committed. Interesting.
Yeah, and then that's that they're using the Committed in the sense of being committed, like in the
Interesting, isn't it? There you go. That's one of my favorite things about Read and Write, is that I initially used it solely in docs because I'm a docs addict. I love docs, but I love the fact that all of the functions work on the web as well.
Can you do one more thing? Can you go back to the Google website that we're on, which one? Yep, that one there. And just hit the button, the second, see whether it works. The second from the end, the simplify the page, and whether this will work with. Yeah, there you go. It will take any web page and it will simplify the web page for the student. We won't do it now, but you see across, it's got black on white there. You can change. You can make it you can make it different colors. You can change the font size. You can do a whole bunch of stuff. You can use different text. Yep. So if you go back to the.
I thought Comic Sans had been banned from the internet, by the way. But anyway, sorry. What did you talk about?
Go back to the blue on yellow. Let's put it back to the black and white.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And one new thing. If you go to the Discover button up there and click it on.
Mm-hmm.
What it will do, it will analyze the website and look at all the key vocab. And when it'll identify key vocab, and if you just wait a minute, when you hover over it, it will give you some more detail on that vocab. So kind of on the fly, it lets you dive deeper into each of those. You might, there we go.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah,
that's brand new. I've never seen that before.
That's really a new page. Yeah. So
what does it say about Google? There you go. That's really awesome. We could literally, I could talk about Read and Write all night, because I think it's the most amazing tool. I will say that it is a freemium product, which is, if you haven't heard the term freemium before, everything's freemium nowadays. So there's a free and a paid version. But I know that it is free for teachers. Read and Write.
It is.
You have a link for this probably, right? But I just Google it.
Okay. Yeah, no, you just Google free for teachers. It'll come up on the first one, and there you go. And you just have to just tell us who you are, give us your name, some details, because we just need to identify that you are actually in a school, and away you go. Yeah. So.
And we are working with the Victorian Department of Education to work out how to get this for every department teacher in Victoria as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Greg. Somehow we ran out of time, which Jim and Chris are still there. They're laughing because every week I tell them off for running over time.
Yeah,
tell them off in a nice way, not really scold. Yeah. Let me jump down here to our feedback. So here's my slide. My slides are now slowly trying to catch up with us. Here we go. So thank you, Magic. Oh. Jeannie, Georgia put the link on the screen as my slide deck. There we go. If you have joined us previously, we do thank you for participating in these webinars. And we do really believe that feedback is a gift. It does help us to shape future webinars. As I mentioned at the start, this concept of inclusive technologies is such a huge topic that is so important for us to discuss. And we really scratched the surface this afternoon. And so we are going to be working with the department to bring back a more extended in-depth look at a whole lot of things next term. So if there's something in particular that you would like us to address or talk about or anything like that, please do include it in the feedback, and we can then incorporate it into our future planning, and it does help to inform our future planning as well. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. This was the last of the webinars in this particular series, so I do want to just say a final shout out, thank you to everybody who has watched us. I'm very, very grateful that Jim and Chris have run a whole lot. Thank you very much, Greg, for coming along and helping out with this afternoon's webinar. We are going to send you a 4G dongle before the next one that you participate in, just so you know that. We are really, really fortunate to at Google to have the opportunity to work with fabulous partners, and we've done that with our PD partners and also now with our tech partners as part of this series. And we really believe that our tools, I believe that Google's tools are awesome, and they can be made even better when we work in partnership with others. Just like in real life, when we work in partnership with other people, we're going to get better outcomes. And so we're really grateful to have that opportunity to partner with others and to help to bring great opportunities to education. So please do fill in that feedback, and if there is anything that you are interested in learning more about, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I shared the website, earlier for all of Google's accessibility resources, just google.com/accessibility, and you will get all of the amazing, there's great playlists that you can watch videos, etc. if there's things that you're particularly interested in. And remember that Teach From Home website also has a great section on families that has some really great accessibility resources in there as well. Greg, we are over time, so we are going to have to wind up now. Thank you very much for coming along this afternoon and sharing your knowledge. I know that we probably need another 5 or 6 hours to keep going now. So I do appreciate that you have given up your time and your knowledge to share. And we thank you to Jim and Chris for stalking the chat, and to everybody who's come along to watch. Stay tuned for what we will bring out next, and please get in touch with us if there's any way that we can be of service to you. We are always looking to opportunities to better serve the education community. So reach out if there's anything that we can do to help you in any way, shape or form. And we will wind up this afternoon's webinar with that. Big shout out to Riley and Lisa and a whole lot of people that have joined us, I think, every single week as well. Thank you for participating in the chat. All right, that's it. Thanks very much. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again in term 3, as the wind literally seems like it's going to blow my window in behind the screen here. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.